The cold silence of space stretched endlessly, an ocean of black where light barely pierced the dark. Somewhere deep beyond the known borders of human space, a faint signal pulsed irregular, trembling, desperate. It was an ancient beacon, hidden. For centuries, suddenly coming alive with a call for help. No one dared to answer. The stars around it blinked silently, indifferent to the message carried across light years. Yet for the Deathworlders, the humans bred and hardened on the deadliest planets, this was more than a signal. It was a challenge, a summons to face what others feared. Commander Kale stood alone on the bridge of the Iron Viper, the flagship of the Deathworlders' fleet, eyes locked on the flickering data streams that danced over the holoscreen. His face was worn and sharp, carved by countless battles fought on worlds where death was a constant companion. Call from the unknown system was a puzzle, perhaps a trap. But to Kale, it was a test of humanity's resolve. His people were forged in fire and ice, surviving where others perished. Now they would answer a cry, born in the cold void, where hope seemed lost. Around him the bridge hummed with quiet efficiency. The crew, hardened by years of training and survival, moved without hesitation. Every sensor was tuned to catch even the faintest hint of danger. The signal's frequency fluctuated, weaving a pattern strange and haunting. Communications Officer Lieutenant Rena's fingers danced over her console, decoding fragments of the alien distress call. "Commander, it's more than a simple plea. This signal, it's layered with warnings. Something powerful is coming." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Prepare the fleet. We move at first light. No second chances." He turned toward the panoramic viewport, where the stars stretched endlessly, like silent watchers of fate. The galaxy was full of mysteries and dangers. But the Deathworlders did not turn away from the unknown. The fleet moved quietly through, the void, sleek ships cutting through the black like knives. Their destination was an uncharted system, hidden beyond nebulae and asteroid fields, a place whispered about in old legends, but never explored. The signal originated from a planet known only by its coordinates, a death world scarred by ancient wars and natural disasters. Satellites sent back images of a world broken and silent, its surface darkened by storms and scars that told stories of battle and loss. As the Iron Viper led the fleet into orbit, sensors detected nothing but eerie emptiness. No signs of life, only ruins, twisted metal, and the remnants of a once thriving civilization. The signal source was traced to a massive structure buried beneath layers of ice and rock and outposts, long abandoned but still sending its desperate call. Then the silence was shattered. A shadow moved in the darkness, a fleet of unknown ships decloaking with deadly speed. Their shapes were alien and terrifying, sleek vessels armed with weapons unknown to human science. The Deathworlders scrambled into battle formation, plasma cannons lighting the void as the enemy struck with merciless precision. Kale's voice cut through the chaos, steady and commanding. "Hold your ground. Protect the Iron Viper. Return. Fire on my mark." The battle was fierce and unrelenting, each side testing the other's strength in the cold vacuum. Explosions blossomed like deadly flowers, leaving trails of debris and silence amid the firefight. A garbled message broke through the static of voice, distorted but clear enough to chill the marrow. "We are not your enemies, but the darkness approaches. Help us, or be consumed." The words hung heavy in the air, mixing warning with desperation. Kale made a quick decision. "Hold fire. Open a channel. We need to know who we're fighting, and why." The enemy ships withdrew momentarily, fading back into the nebulae like ghosts, leaving behind a void filled with unanswered questions. Boarding parties prepared to investigate the alien outpost. What they found was beyond any nightmare biomechanical, ruins alive with a strange pulse, walls that breathed and shifted, and holographic records telling tales of a civilization torn apart by war and betrayal. The distress call was real. But so was the danger lurking in the shadows of force known as the Voidborn. Merciless hunters who consumed everything in their path, back on the Iron Viper. Cale stood firm, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. The call for help was no longer just a mission, it was a fight for survival. The Deathworlders had answered. Now they had to face the darkness. The stars watched silently as the fleet prepared for war, knowing that once the Deathworlders crossed the threshold, there was no turning back. The cold planet below was more hostile than anyone had expected. Zarek, the Deathworld sending the distress call, was a place where even the air seemed to fight against life. Storms raged across its barren surface, twisting the jagged mountains and swallowing whole forests in blinding dust. Fleet hovered above, scanning every inch of the scarred land, searching for signs of survivors. Commander Cale's jaw was tight. They had come here to help, but the planet itself seemed to push them back, as if it was warning them to stay away. Alien refugees were fewer than hoped, deep beneath the ice, in tunnels carved through ancient stone. Cale's landing team found a fragile remnant of a once great civilization. Their eyes told stories of fear and loss, but also hope, the hope that the Deathworlders had answered. Their silent plea. These survivors spoke of the Voidborn, the relentless enemy who hunted them across the stars, leaving death and ruin in their wake. Cale listened carefully as the alien leader described the Voidborn creatures born from darkness. Without mercy or compassion, they attacked without warning, feeding on fear and destruction, leaving nothing but silence behind. The Deathworlders, hardened by their own brutal worlds, understood too well what it meant to fight for survival in a place that offered no mercy. Back in orbit, the fleet was not safe. The Voidborn struck again, their shadow ships moving like phantoms through the nebula, launching surprise attacks on the Deathworlders' vessels. The battle was fierce, and the losses began to mount. Cale's heart ached for each fallen comrade, but he knew their mission was greater than any one life. The alien survivors were divided, torn by old rivalries and fear. Some distrusted the Deathworlders, blaming outsiders for bringing war to their doorstep. Others wanted to fight, to stand together against the darkness. Cale realized that winning this war meant more than defeating the enemy, it meant uniting a broken people. Under the surface, hidden threats lurked. Saboteurs worked to undermine the fragile alliance, and whispers of betrayal echoed in shadowed corridors. Every step forward was shadowed by doubt. But the Deathworlders would not falter. Their survival had always depended on facing impossible odds with unbreakable will. Cale gathered his officers in the dim command room. "We fight not just for ourselves," he said, voice steady. "We fight for those who cannot, for hope, for a future. We stand together, or we fall alone." As the storms outside raged on, the fleet prepared for the battles ahead. The fight for Zarek was only beginning. The true enemy was still out there, waiting in the dark. The tension in the alien tunnels was thick enough to cut with a blade. Commander Cale stood among the weary survivors, their faces lined with exhaustion and distrust. Years of war had hardened them, but it had also torn them apart from within. Old grudges and betrayals whispered through every shadowed corner. Cale knew that the greatest enemy was not just the Voidborn outside, but the fractures inside this fragile alliance. The Alien Council met in a cold chamber carved from ice and stone. Vera, the youngest leader, spoke with fierce passion. "We do not stand united, we are doomed. The Deathworlders have come to help, but we must fight for ourselves as well." Her words stirred unrest. Some nodded in agreement, others scowled in defiance. Centuries of conflict could not be erased overnight. Cale listened carefully, understanding that trust was a weapon just as sharp as any plasma rifle. "We do not expect blind faith," he said quietly. "But we fight together, or we fall apart. This war will test us all." His eyes met those of the alien leaders, challenging them to choose between survival and pride. Meanwhile, scouts reported troubling news. The Voidborn were evolving. Their attacks grew more coordinated, their ships faster and deadlier. The enemy had begun deploying bioengineered beast creatures that could tear through hulls and devour entire squads. The Deathworlders had faced horrors before, but these monsters seemed born from nightmares beyond their darkest imaginations. The fleet prepared for a counterattack. Fighter pilots tuned their weapons and checked systems. Engineers repaired damage from previous skirmishes. Every man and woman knew this would be a fight to the death. Kale walked the corridors, offering quiet words of encouragement, knowing that courage alone was not enough strategy, and unity would win this war. On the planet's surface, Deathworlder ground squads trained alongside alien fighters. Slowly, bonds formed amid shared hardship. They learned each other's strengths and weaknesses, adapting tactics to the deadly terrain and unpredictable enemy. The once divided survivors began to glimpse a future where they could fight as one. But the Voidborn had one more terror hidden. In their arsenal, a weapon that could shatter entire fleets with a single strike. Intelligence reports hinted at a dark fortress, a command center where this weapon was being built. Destroying it was the key to ending the war. Kale gathered his council again. "We strike at their heart," he said. "We risk everything too. Destroy that weapon. If we fail, everything is lost." The leaders nodded, grim but resolute. The fate of many worlds now hung in the balance. And the Deathworlders were the galaxy's last hope. The dark asteroid belt surrounding the Voidborns. Fortress was a graveyard of shattered ships and drifting debris. Commander Kale's fleet advanced cautiously, aware that every shadow could hide a trap. The fortress loomed ahead, a massive structure carved from black stone and twisted metal, pulsing with an eerie, unnatural glow. It was the heart of the enemy's power, a place where nightmares were forged and death was certain. Kale studied the tactical maps, his mind racing. The Voidborn were masters of guerrilla warfare, blending their ships into the asteroid fields, striking swiftly before, disappearing into the shadows. Their defenses were layered, and every approach was covered by automated turrets and deadly minefields. The Deathworlders would have to strike fast and hard, risk being cut apart before they could reach the fortress. "Prepare for assault," Kale ordered. "We hit their defenses from multiple angles. Fighters will provide cover for the boarding. Teams, no mistakes." His voice was calm, but the weight of the mission pressed on every soul aboard the Iron Viper. The battle began with a roar. Plasma blasts lit the blackness as the fleet surged forward, weaving through explosions and enemy fire. The Voidborn responded with deadly precision, their bioengineered ships tearing through the Deathworlders' ranks. Alarms screamed, and the bridge shook with the force of near misses amid the chaos. Kale led the boarding party in a sleek assault vessel, launching onto the fortress's surface. The airlock hissed open, and they plunged into cold darkness, moving swiftly through twisting corridors lined with alien machinery. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, and a low hum echoed a warning of the weapon hidden deep within, fighting their way through alien guards and deadly traps. The boarding team reached the central chamber, their pulsating with raw energy. Was the Voidborn's ultimate weapon, an orb of shimmering light capable of unleashing destruction across entire star systems. Its power was terrifying and unnatural. Kale ordered his team to set charges around the weapon, but the enemy was not done. Reinforcements poured in, creatures of shadow and metal, attacking with ruthless speed. The battle was desperate, close quarters, and brutal. Every second counted. As the explosives counted down, Kale and his team fought back-to-back, holding the line against impossible odds. The blast shattered the chamber, sending shockwaves through the fortress and the surrounding space. The weapon was destroyed. Its deadly power ended. The fleet outside saw the explosion ripple through the void, a beacon of hope in the darkness. But victory came at a cost. Ships were lost, brave souls sacrificed, and the scars of battle would linger long after the fight. Kale looked to the stars, knowing the war was far from over. The Voidborn might be broken, but the galaxy was still a dangerous place. The Deathworlders had fought not just for survival, but for the chance to protect a fragile peace. The dust of battle had barely settled when the weight of loss pressed down on the fleet. The Deathworlders mourned their fallen comrades' brave souls, who had given everything to stop the Voidborn's deadly weapon. Commander Kale walked among the survivors, his heart heavy, but his spirit unbroken. The scars of war ran deep, but so did the bonds forged in fire and blood. The alien factions remained divided. Old rivalries still simmered beneath forced smiles and uneasy agreements. Some blamed the Deathworlders for dragging them into a war they were unprepared for. Others feared that without unity, all would be lost. Kale knew that the true battle was not only against the enemy, but against doubt and distrust within their own ranks. In the Cold War Council chamber carved from ice, heated words flew like shards of glass. Vera, the alien leader who had once spoken of unity, argued fiercely for peace and cooperation. We cannot win divided. We must stand together, or we will fall apart. Her words sparked both hope and anger. The fragile alliance teetered on the edge. Meanwhile, intelligence revealed a new horror. The Voidborn were not defeated. Instead, they were regrouping, gathering forces for a final, devastating strike. Their leader, a shadowy figure known only as the Harbinger, had unleashed a plan that could wipe out entire systems in one swift blow. The galaxy held its breath. Kale stood before his officers, resolve shining in his eyes. We face the darkest hour, but we fight not just for survival, we fight for the future. For those who cannot fight, our strength lies in unity. We must protect this fragile hope no matter the cost. The fleet prepared once more for war. Pilots ran final checks, engineers worked tirelessly, and medics tended to the wounded. Across the cold stars, alliances held fast or broke. The Deathworlders became not just warriors, but the galaxy's last shield against annihilation. In the silence before the storm, Kale felt the weight of command more than ever. The final battle was coming, and everything would change forever. The final battle loomed like a shadow across the galaxy. The Deathworlders' fleet, battered but unyielding, advanced toward the Voidborn's stronghold, a fortress forged in darkness and death. Commander Kale stood on the bridge of the Iron Viper, every sense alert, every breath steady. This was the moment that would decide the fate of countless worlds. The Voidborn unleashed their full fury. Swarms of bioengineered ships and monstrous beasts surged forward, claws and plasma ripping through space like storms of destruction. The Deathworlders fought with unmatched ferocity, their tactics honed by years of survival on the deadliest planets. Every shot fired was a message. Humanity would not bow to the darkness. Kale led the boarding party once more, diving into the heart of the fortress where the Harbinger waited. Corridors twisted with alien technology, alive with shadows and whispers. The Harbinger was a being of nightmare, part machine, part living shadow, wielding power drawn from the void itself. The fight was brutal, a clash of wills as much as weapons. Kale and his team pushed through, fighting past traps and enemies until they faced the Harbinger. Their battle shook the fortress, every strike sending shockwaves through the very walls. It was a fight not just for survival, but for the soul of the galaxy. Finally, Kale found an opening. With a desperate strike, he severed the source of the Harbinger's power, causing the dark creature to collapse into nothingness. The fortress began to crumble, but the fleet outside rallied, breaking the enemy's lines and driving the remaining Voidborn into retreat. As the dust settled, the Deathworlders and their alien allies stood victorious, but forever changed. The cost had been high, but a new hope burned bright in the cold stars. Humanity had proven that even in the darkest void, light could shine, a light born from courage, unity, unbreakable will. Kale looked out into the vast galaxy, knowing this was only the beginning. The Deathworlders had answered the call for help, becoming the shield that protected the innocent and the fierce force that kept the darkness at bay. And as the stars twinkled beyond the darkness, a new chapter of humanity's story among the stars began, one of hope, strength, and endless possibility.